My name is Albert Roberts, and I am the co-founder of the frigate Acasta Royal Navy Recreation Unit. The Acasta was founded a few years ago because I had just gotten into doing 1812, and I was doing 1812 Doctor, which is my usual persona, not this one. And I had a friend who was very interested in the Royal Navy, and he had a Royal Navy captain's persona that he had been building up for 1812. And we decided, oh, wouldn't it be fun if like our characters knew each other and we'd served together in the War of 1812, and that now the Doctor's retired and I'm still. And so we'd really talked about it a lot, and then we just kind of looked at each other. We had this moment where we looked at each other and went, why don't we just do Royal Navy? And he said, oh yeah, okay, that sounds great, let's do that. And so then a couple weeks passed, I went to another event and told a friend of mine about it, and he said, oh, that's really cool because I've read this book series all about the Royal Navy and I would love to do it. And so then he did it, and he jumped in, and his two sons jumped in and became our first lieutenant and one of our sailors and one of our midshipmen. Then I went to another event and told another guy, Jim Apple, and he was like, well, yeah, okay, I've not ever done anything really but native much, but I'll jump in too. And then he brought in some friends, and they really got gung-ho about it, and it just sort of snowed. It was like this perfect storm. It was like everybody was kind of thinking about the Royal Navy, but nobody around here was really doing it. So the captain and I sort of co-founded it. He was the one that came up with the ship Acasta, and we picked it because it was in the North American station at the time that we were talking about doing War of 1812. It wasn't like a spectacular ship. It's not like HMS Victory where, Lord Nelson served or anything. It was just sort of a very average sort of work-a-day ship, just sort of doing its thing. And that's how the Acasta was born. Royal Navy is great as far as research goes because those poor guys, I learned, they do nothing but pretty much write all the time. When they're not fighting and pulling ropes and shooting guns, they are filling out reports and journal entries and things like that go back to the Admiralty. So a lot of that stuff is actually still accessible online for free. So you can find the regulations, the Admiralty regulation books, which tell you like, if you're this position, you get paid this much per lunar month and that sort of thing. And here are the things that you're supposed to do. Like if you're the surgeon, you should be able to do these things. And if you're the bosun, you should be able to do these things. If you're the captain and so forth. Another great source of research for the Royal Navy is that not only online, but you can find portraits of these guys. These guys some of these guys were pretty major heroes, and so they've got some pretty spectacular portraits, so you can really look and see what were these guys wearing, how were they wearing it. Because it's not just, well, I got the clothes, but you got to know like how are they wearing it and why are they wearing it that way. And one of the cool things about experimental archaeology and living history is, when you wear this all day on a hot summer day, you learn, okay, well, this layer works well for this, but this wool coat was probably a bad decision today when it was, humidity of 9,000 degrees. Portraits are great. There's lots of drawings from the era, paintings, portraits, plus there's tons of documentation for the Royal Navy online. So that's where a lot of our research has happened. And then we built a website, our Acasta website, and we've actually found that there are a couple of descendants of original Acastas have contacted us and said, hey, I've got this Bible that belonged to my great whoever, who was the captain. The family story goes he was the captain of the ship. Well, actually, he wasn't the captain. He was the captain of the tops, which is a completely different thing. But these people when you've built something and the word starts to kind of get out, people will eventually kind of come in your direction and say, oh, hey, you're interested in that one particular thing in, history. Well, that's funny because look, I have one and here it is, would you like to see it? So we have people seek us out at events who are interested in the Navy, who, they'll bring their toys along and say, have you ever seen one of these before? Whatever. So, but yeah, there's tons of research out there. You just have to kind of dig and eventually you find a nugget of gold. My advice to new people is that, we were all new people one time. I was a new guy who had to go out to my local fort that was 15 minutes away from my house, and they dressed me up out of their costume closet one weekend, and I was hooked. The hook was set, and that was that. My advice for people new to the hobby is find your local fort, find your local historic site, find your local, historic house, and go seek it out. Take the tour. Ask them if they have a volunteer program. A lot of times you can get plugged in places like that. As far as being somebody new who's wanting to do something that maybe like they're not doing it there, sometimes if nobody's doing what you would like to be doing, sort of like with my Acasta, you just have to kind of do it yourself. And that sounds kind of like a pain, but honestly, it's been super rewarding for me. And I've made a lot of cool friends. I've gone to events that I might not necessarily have gone to otherwise.